The massive alien ship hung in space like a floating city. It was 3 miles long and covered in strange purple metal that seemed to shift and move in the starlight. Smaller ships surrounded it like baby fish swimming around their mother. The sight made everyone on Luna Station hold their breath. President Chun Wei stood at the observation deck window and watched the alien fleet position itself near Earth's moon. Behind her, the United Earth Assembly Hall buzzed with nervous voices. Representatives from every nation on Earth had gathered for this moment. Some looked excited. Most looked scared. "Madam President," Admiral Sarah Okafor said quietly, walking up beside her. "Their lead ship is requesting permission to dock. They want to send a delegation aboard." Chun Wei nodded slowly. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. That had seen too much war and politics. "How many ships do they have out there, Admiral?" 57 that we can count. But our sensors keep picking up more signatures. They might have cloaked vessels we cannot see. "And how many ships do we have in the system?" Admiral Okafor's jaw tightened. 12, ma'am. The Third Fleet is still 2 days out from Mars." Chun Wei almost smiled. The aliens probably thought 12 ships meant Earth was weak and unprepared. They were wrong about the unprepared part. Let them come aboard. But only 5 delegates, no weapons, no recording devices. And they follow our rules while they are here. 2 hours later, the alien delegation arrived at Luna Station. The human guards watched in amazement as the creatures walked through the airlocks. The lead alien was 12 feet tall and looked like it was made of living crystal. Its body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns on the walls. Behind it came 4 other beings that looked like nothing from Earth. One had 6 arms and blue skin. Another looked like a walking tree with golden leaves. The third had tentacles instead of legs and floated above the ground. The last one was covered in gray fur and had teeth like a shark, but the crystal being was clearly in charge. It moved with the confidence of someone who owned everything they saw. When it spoke, its voice came from a device hanging around its neck that translated its words into English. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Scifi Empire," the crystal being announced. "I speak for Emperor Thexval, ruler of 847 worlds and master of 12 galaxy arms." The human delegates sat at a long table in the assembly hall. President Chun Wei sat in the center, with Admiral Okafor on her right and Dr. James Nakamura on her left. Dr. Nakamura was the Director of Human Strategic Development, though most people did not know what that actually meant. Behind them sat representatives from every major nation on Earth. "Welcome to Luna Station, Ambassador Veltar," President Chun Wei said. Her voice was calm and steady. "We are honored by your visit." Ambassador Veltar made a sound that might have been laughter. The translator device turned it into something like static. "Honor, yes, you should feel honored. The Scifi Empire does not often give primitive species the chance to join willingly." Several human delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Admiral Okafor's hand moved slightly toward her sidearm before she caught herself. "Please continue," Chun Wei said. Politely. "Your species has reached a level of development that allows you to serve the Empire," Veltar announced. "You have basic space travel. You have conquered your home world. You have established a few small colonies. This makes you useful." The crystal alien moved around the table as it spoke. Its footsteps rang like bells on the metal floor. "The Empire offers your species 3 options. First, you may join willingly as a tributary state. You will pay taxes to the Empire and provide soldiers for our armies. In return, you will receive protection and access to superior technology. Second, you may refuse and face economic sanctions until you change your minds. Third, you may resist and be conquered by force." Ambassador Veltar stopped walking and turned to face President Chun Wei directly. "The Empire has used this system for 3,000 years. It has never failed. Every species eventually chooses option 1. It is simply a matter of how much suffering they wish to endure first." The assembly hall fell silent. Chun Wei could hear the hum of the life support systems and the distant sound of ships moving outside. She looked around the table at the faces of her fellow humans. Some looked angry, some looked afraid. A few looked like they wanted to accept the alien offer immediately. "How many species have you integrated into your empire?" Dr. Nakamura asked. Quietly, 847, Veltar replied proudly. "From the smallest single-world civilizations to mighty star-spanning federations, all now serve the empire faithfully." "And how many refused your offer completely?" "Veltaris Crystal?" Body flickered slightly. "None that still exist." President Chunwei stood up slowly. She was tiny compared to the massive alien, but something in her posture made everyone in the room pay attention. "Ambassador Veltar, thank you for explaining your empire's position. Now let me explain ours." She walked to the center of the room, her hands clasped behind her back. "Earth hereby bans the Zirithi Empire from all human space. You have 72 hours to withdraw all personnel, vessels, and installations from the Sol system and any territory claimed by humanity. Cross this line again, and we will consider it an act of war." The silence that followed was so complete that it seemed to echo. The alien delegates looked at each other in what humans interpreted as confusion. Ambassador Veltar's crystal body began to pulse with strange colors. "I believe your translation device malfunctioned," Veltar said slowly. "You cannot have said what I think you said." "Your translation device works perfectly," Chunwei replied. "Earth rejects your offer, all of them. We want nothing to do with your empire. Leave our space and do not return." The six-armed alien began making rapid clicking sounds. The tree-like being's golden leaves rustled violently. The floating tentacled creature bobbed up and down like a cork in water. The gray-furred alien showed all of its sharp teeth. Ambassador Veltar himself seemed to grow larger somehow. "Little mammals, you misunderstand your position. We are offering you a choice only as a courtesy. The Empire spans 12 galaxy arms. We command fleets of 50,000 ships. We have integrated species that could crack your world like an egg with their bare hands." Admiral Okafor started to stand, but Chunwei gestured for her to remain seated. 71 hours, 58 minutes remaining," the president said calmly. "You have 12 ships in this system," Veltar continued, his voice rising. "We have tracked every human vessel in space. You control 43 star systems. The Empire controls 43,000. Your weapons are chemical rockets and metal projectiles. Our weapons turn stars into weapons. Do you understand the mathematics of your situation?" Dr. Nakamura leaned forward slightly. "Ambassador, how long did it take your empire to gather information about humanity?" 3 years of careful observation," Veltar replied, clearly proud of their intelligence work. "And in those 3 years, did it occur to you that we might have been gathering information about you as well?" The crystal alien's pulsing colors shifted to something that looked angry. What could primitive mammals possibly learn that would matter against the might of the Empire? Chunwei smiled, and it was not a warm expression. "We learned that you always do the same thing. You make your offer. You wait for acceptance. If acceptance does not come, you send a small fleet to intimidate. If intimidation fails, you send a larger fleet to conquer. You have done this 847 times. You have never encountered a species that told you to simply go away." "Because such a species would not survive the encounter," Veltar said coldly. "We also learned that you consider yourselves the apex species in the galaxy," Admiral Okafor added. "You believe that size and numbers and superior technology always win wars." "Because they do," the gray-furred alien growled. Speaking for the first time, Dr. Nakamura opened a small device that projected a holographic star map into the air above the table. It showed the local region of space with Earth at the center. "This is what your intelligence gathering told you about human expansion." Small blue dots appeared scattered around Earth, 43 of them, just as the aliens had said. "Now this is the reality?" Suddenly, the map exploded with blue dots. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. They stretched across vast regions of space that the Empire had thought were empty. Ambassador Veltar's crystal body went completely dark for a moment. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected such expansion. Your sensors detected what we wanted them to detect? Chun-Wei said quietly. We learned early that the galaxy was not empty. It was full of empires and federations and species that liked to conquer other species. So we hid, we spread quietly, we built carefully, and we watched. The holographic map changed again. Now it showed red dots mixed in with the blue ones. The red dots were everywhere, scattered throughout the galaxy like an infection. Red dots represent human intelligence assets in Empire space, Dr. Nakamura explained. We have been watching you for a very long time, Ambassador. We know your fleet movements. We know your supply lines. We know your weaknesses. Veltar's voice became very quiet. You are bluffing. President Chun-Wei walked over to stand directly in front of the massive alien. She had to crane her neck to look up at him, but her voice never wavered. In approximately 4 hours, the Emperor's personal dreadnought will jump into the Zirathi Prime System. Its captain will be Admiral Zarkith, and he will be carrying orders to begin mobilizing the Third Imperial Fleet. The dreadnought's hull number is XE7749, and it has a crew of 42,000. Admiral Zarkith has a mate named Velsina and 3 offspring. His favorite food is fermented kelp from the methane seas of Zirathi Minor. The crystal alien took a step backward. How could you possibly know such details? Because we have been preparing for this day for 200 years, Chun-Wei replied. Every human child learns about the Zirathi Empire in school. Every human ship carries weapons designed specifically to fight your technology. Every human world is ready to defend itself. And every human in the galaxy is connected to every other human through systems your empire cannot even imagine. Admiral. Okafor stood up and joined the president. You came here expecting to find a primitive species with a few ships and no coordination. Instead, you found something that has never existed in this galaxy before. A truly unified species that thinks and acts as one. Dr. Nakamura also rose from his seat. You want to know what we learned about your empire, Ambassador? We learned that you are used to fighting hundreds of separate species with different technologies and different tactics and different goals. You have never fought a single species that was completely unified. You have never fought a species that prepared for you specifically. And you have certainly never fought a species that considers the entire galaxy to be their battlefield. The alien delegates were all making various sounds of distress now. The tree-like being's leaves had turned brown. The floating creature was spinning in circles. The 6-armed alien was wrapping its arms around itself like it was cold. Ambassador Veltar tried to regain his composure. Even if what you say is true, you are still vastly outnumbered. The Empire has existed for 3,000 years. We have conquered species more advanced than you. We have weapons that can destroy entire solar systems. And yet, President Chun-Wei said softly, in 3,000 years you have never encountered anything like us. Tell me, Ambassador, in all your Empire's history, have you ever fought a war where the enemy knew your every move before you made it? Have you ever faced an opponent who could coordinate the actions of billions of individuals across thousands of star systems in real time? Have you ever tried to conquer a species that considers death preferable to surrender? The crystal aliens. Colors shifted to something that looked like fear. What are you saying? I am saying that your 72-hour countdown has begun, Chun-Wei replied. I'm saying that when it expires, your empire will learn what happens when you cross a line that should never be crossed. I'm saying that you came here to offer us 3 choices, but you only gave us 1. So now we are giving you 1. She stepped closer to the towering alien. Leave now, do not return. Do not threaten human space. Do not interfere with human colonies. Do not so much as send a probe into our territory. Because if you do, we will not just defend ourselves. We will end your empire completely. The silence stretched on for long minutes. Finally, Ambassador Veltar spoke in a voice that sounded very different from before. And if we refuse? President Chun-Wei's smile was cold as space itself. Then you will learn why humanity is the only species in the galaxy that has never been conquered. You will learn why we spent 200 years preparing for this moment. And you will learn that there are fates worse than destruction. She gestured toward the airlocks. 69 hours, 37 minutes remaining, Ambassador. I suggest you use that time to convince your emperor that some lines should never be crossed. The alien delegation left Luna Station in complete silence. As their ship pulled away and rejoined the waiting fleet, President Chunwei stood at the observation window and watched them go. Do you think they will listen? Admiral Okafor asked quietly. No, Chunwei replied. They cannot imagine that we are serious. They have been the apex predator for too long. They will test us. Dr. Nakamura joined them at the window. And when they do? President Chunwei's reflection in the transparent aluminum looked like a woman who had seen the future and accepted what must be done. Then they will learn what happens when someone finally says no to the Zirithi Empire and means it. The command deck of the Zirithi battleship Eternal Dominion hummed with activity. Ambassador Veltar stood before a massive holographic display showing the Sol system. Around him, dozens of alien officers worked at control stations that glowed with purple light. The ship itself was over 2 miles long and carried enough firepower to level a continent. Status report, Admiral Velanoth commanded. The Admiral was even larger than Veltar, his crystal body dark blue with veins of silver running through it. He had commanded fleets for 800 years and had never lost a battle. 200 ships in position around the human system, reported Commander Zekanol, a 6-armed being with pale green skin. Long-range sensors show 12 human vessels holding position near their largest planet. They appear to be maintaining defensive formations. Admiral Velanoth made a sound like grinding glass, which his species used for laughter. 12 ships against 200. These humans are either very brave or very stupid. What did you think of their response, Ambassador? Asked Captain Mordick, a gray-furred creature with sharp teeth. Their leader seemed quite confident for someone in such a weak position. Veltar's crystal body pulsed with annoyed red colors. Primitive posturing. They hope to appear strong, so we will offer better terms. It is a common tactic among lesser species. The countdown they mentioned? Velanoth asked. Meaningless theater. What could 12 ships possibly do against a fleet this size? Veltar moved to stand beside the Admiral. We should begin standard intimidation procedures. A few demonstration attacks on their outer colonies should convince them to be reasonable. Admiral Velanoth was about to respond when alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The holographic display shifted to show something that made every being on the command deck freeze in place. Admiral, Commander Zekanol's voice was tight with confusion. Long-range sensors are detecting massive movement in human space. Ships are appearing everywhere. The display zoomed out to show a wider view of local space. What had been empty void an hour ago was now filled with moving dots of light, hundreds of them, then thousands. Impossible, Admiral Velanoth growled. Our intelligence reports stated that humans had only 43 colonies and a few hundred ships total. The sensors do not lie, Admiral, Zekanol reported. We are detecting over 1,200 star systems with human activity. Ship counts are approaching 50,000 vessels. Veltar's crystal body went completely dark. This cannot be accurate. We monitored them for 3 years. We tracked every human ship movement. Captain Mordick was studying readouts at his station. Admiral, I am reading something else. These human ships, they are not built like anything in our databases. The main display shifted to show detailed scans of human vessels. The alien officers stared in growing confusion at what they saw. Human ships looked nothing like Imperial designs or the vessels of any known species. Where are their shield generators? Commander Zekanol asked, puzzlement clear in his voice. They appear to use armor instead of energy shields, Captain Mordick replied. Extremely thick armor. Our scans show hull plating over 6 feet thick in some places. What about their weapons? Strange, very strange. They use kinetic projectiles and explosive missiles instead of energy weapons. Some projectiles appear to be solid metal traveling at significant fractions of light speed. Admiral Velinov studied the scans with growing unease. In 800 years of service, he had learned to trust his instincts. And his instincts were telling him something was very wrong. "What is the tactical assessment of these weapon systems?" he demanded. Captain Mordick consulted his displays. "Unknown, Admiral. Our combat computers have no data on kinetic weapons of this design. The projectiles appear to be too fast for point defense systems to intercept reliably." Meanwhile, in a secure chamber deep inside Luna Station, President Chun-Wei sat with her senior advisors around a conference table. The room had no windows and was protected by the strongest security systems humanity had ever built. On the walls, multiple screens showed real-time data from across human space. "Status report, Dr. Nakamura," Chun-Wei said quietly. Dr. Nakamura touched a control panel and the screens came alive with information. "Project Damocles is fully active, Madam President. All human worlds, stations, and ships are now connected through the quantum entanglement network. Response time between any 2 points in human space is less than 1 second. Admiral Okafor leaned forward. "Fleet status?" "Phase 1 deployment is complete," Nakamura continued. 47,000 vessels are now visible to Empire sensors. They believe they are seeing our full strength, and our actual strength, classified beyond this room, but approximately 8 times what they can detect. Phase 2 assets remain cloaked and in position. Chun-Wei nodded slowly. "What is the Empire doing?" General Martinez, head of human intelligence, spoke up. "They are confused, ma'am. Their long-range sensors are overwhelmed trying to track all our ship movements. They sent probe ships to investigate some of our outer colonies, but we guided them to locations where they would see exactly what we wanted them to see. Their psychological state?" Admiral Velinov is experienced but rigid in his thinking. He has never faced an opponent that did not follow standard imperial tactical doctrine. Ambassador Veltar is beginning to doubt their intelligence reports. The crews are nervous because nothing they are seeing matches what they expected. On the main screen, a real-time display showed the positions of Empire ships around the Sol system. They were maintaining a blockade formation designed to prevent human ships from leaving the system. "They still think this is a normal first contact scenario," Admiral Okafor observed. "They expect us to panic and negotiate." "How long until the 72-hour deadline expires?" Chun-Wei asked. 18 hours, 37 minutes, Dr. Nakamura replied. Chun-Wei stood and walked to the main display. She touched a control, and the view changed to show star charts of the entire local galaxy region. Red dots marked Empire positions. Blue dots showed human assets. The pattern was clear to anyone who understood strategy. "They see us as a single point of resistance," she said quietly. "One system to blockade, one world to threaten, one government to intimidate. They have no concept of distributed defense." "The countdown was psychological warfare," General Martinez added. "They expect us to become more reasonable as the deadline approaches. Every species they have encountered before tried to negotiate for better terms at the last minute." Admiral Okafor studied the tactical displays. "Their fleet positioning is textbook imperial doctrine. Overwhelming force concentrated at the primary target. They have left their supply lines completely undefended." Dr. Nakamura smiled grimly. "They cannot imagine an enemy that would strike at their infrastructure instead of meeting them in direct battle." Back on the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Velinov was receiving reports that made less sense by the hour. Human ships were moving throughout their space in patterns that seemed random but felt purposeful. Long-range communications were detecting transmissions between human colonies that used encryption his ships could not break. "Admiral," Commander Zekino reported, "Intelligence Division has completed their analysis of human ship movements. They believe the humans are evacuating their outer colonies." "Evacuating to where?" "Unknown, sir. Our sensors cannot track the ships once they reach the edge of our detection range." Captain Mordick looked up from his station with concern. "Admiral, I am detecting something unusual about human communications." "Explain." The quantum signatures suggest they are using entanglement-based communications. If true, this would allow instantaneous coordination across any distance. Admiral Velenov's crystal body flickered with surprise. Quantum entanglement communications? That technology is theoretical. Even the Empire has never successfully implemented it. Yet the sensor data strongly suggests that is exactly what they are using, Mordic replied. Ambassador Veltar, who had been silent during these exchanges, finally spoke. This changes nothing. They are still only one species. We are an empire of 847 worlds. Even if they have more ships than we thought, they cannot match our total resources. Perhaps, Admiral Velenov said slowly, but I am beginning to suspect that we have fundamentally misunderstood what we are dealing with. On Luna Station, the countdown continued. President Chen Wei had not slept in 24 hours, but she showed no signs of fatigue. Her staff worked around the clock, coordinating with human forces across thousands of star systems. Message from the Kepler 442 system, reported Communications Officer Blake. Colony Administrator Torres reports that Empire probe ships approached their outer sensor perimeter. They were allowed to observe the mining operations and agricultural facilities. As planned, did they see the defense platforms? Admiral Okafor asked. Negative. All military installations remain cloaked. The Empire probes detected exactly what we wanted them to detect. A lightly defended farming world with minimal space-based assets. Dr. Nakamura pulled up long-range sensor data. The Empire is following their standard playbook perfectly. They are cataloging our visible assets and planning attack priorities based on what they think they see. Estimated time until they realize the truth? Chen Wei asked. Not until we want them to, General Martinez replied. Every piece of intelligence they gather is carefully controlled. They see productive colonies with small defense forces. They have no idea that every human world can defend itself better than most Empire fortress systems. The President walked to a secure terminal and entered her authorization codes. Immediately, every screen in the room displayed a single countdown. Timer. 12 hours, 15 minutes remaining, she announced to the room. Signal all fleet commanders. Prepare for Phase 3 deployment, Admiral Okafor stood. Ma'am, are you certain they will not withdraw? There is still time for them to honor the ultimatum. Chen Wei looked at the tactical displays showing Empire ships holding position around Earth. They have spent 3,000 years believing that superior numbers and firepower always win. They cannot conceive of a scenario where they might lose. They will stay, and when the deadline expires, then they will learn what happens when someone finally calls the Empire's bluff, Chen Wei replied. Signal all human forces. Execute. Demonstration Protocol Alpha. Dr. Nakamura looked up from his displays. Ma'am, Demonstration Protocol Alpha will reveal our true capabilities. There will be no going back after that. There was no going back the moment they entered our space and demanded our surrender, Chen Wei said firmly. The Empire has existed for 3,000 years by making other species afraid. It is time they learned what fear feels like. On the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Velenov received a priority message from Empire High Command. Emperor Thexville himself was demanding updates on the human situation. The Admiral's response would determine whether the Empire classified humanity as a minor annoyance or a serious threat. Compose a message to the Emperor, Velenov commanded. Inform His Majesty that the human situation is more complex than initial reports indicated. They possess more ships than expected and appear to have advanced communications technology. However, they remain significantly outnumbered and outgunned. Recommend proceeding with standard conquest protocols, but with increased fleet allocation. As the message was transmitted across the galaxy to Empire Central Command, none of the aliens aboard the Eternal Dominion realized they were making the biggest mistake in their species' long history. They still believed they were dealing with a normal first contact scenario. They had no idea they were about to face something that had never existed in the galaxy before. A united humanity that had spent 2 centuries preparing for this exact moment. in the deepest levels of Luna Station. In rooms that did not officially exist, technicians made final preparations for systems that would change galactic history. Project Damocles was more than just communications and coordination. It was the transformation of human civilization into something new, something that could think and act as a single organism spread across thousands of worlds. The countdown continued. And with each passing hour, the Scifi Empire moved closer to learning what happened when an unstoppable force met an immovable object. Except in this case, they were the ones who were about to be moved. Fleet Admiral SCI-FI had commanded Scifi fleets for 600 years. His massive crystalline body bore the scars of a dozen major campaigns, and his deep purple coloring marked him as one of the Empire's most decorated warriors. He had never lost a battle, never retreated from an enemy, and never doubted the superiority of Imperial forces. Today, he was about to experience all three for the first time. The Sword of Empire led a formation of 500 ships toward the Kepler 442 system, located on the edge of human space. Intelligence reports indicated it was a lightly defended agricultural world with perhaps a dozen human vessels for protection. It would serve as the perfect demonstration of Imperial might. Status report, Admiral SCI-FI commanded from his throne-like command chair. 500 ships in attack formation, reported his tactical officer, a gray-skinned being with 4 arms. Long-range sensors confirm human presence in the target system. Estimated 12 to 15 vessels of unknown configuration. Planetary defenses, minimal, Admiral. We detect some communication arrays and what appear to be orbital farms. No significant military installations. Admiral SCI-FI made the rumbling sound his species used for satisfaction. Perfect. The humans chose poorly when they decided to resist the Empire. After we destroy their ships and bombard their cities, the other human worlds will surrender. Quickly, the Imperial fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Immediately, sensors began scanning the inner system for targets. What they found confused everyone on the command deck. "Admiral," the tactical officer said slowly, "I am detecting 47 human vessels in the system." 47? That is 3 times what intelligence predicted. Yes, sir. And they are not running. They appear to be moving to intercept our fleet. Admiral SCI-FI studied the tactical display with growing puzzlement. The human ships were indeed moving toward his fleet in what looked like an attack formation. It made no sense. Even 47 ships could not hope to defeat 500 Imperial vessels. What is their configuration? He demanded. Strange, Admiral. They appear to be heavily armored but show no energy shields. Weapons are primarily kinetic projectiles and missile systems. No plasma cannons or particle beams that we can detect. Primitive, SCI-FI concluded. They are trying to intimidate us with numbers, but their technology is clearly inferior. All ships, prepare for combat. We will end this quickly. On the bridge of the human battleship New Horizon, Captain Maria Santos watched the Imperial fleet approach on her tactical displays. Her ship was 2,000 feet long and built like a flying fortress. Thick armor plating covered every surface, and hidden weapon ports waited to reveal the guns within. Imperial fleet holding standard attack. Formation, reported Lieutenant Commander Park from the tactical station. 500 ships arranged in 7 battle groups. They are following textbook Imperial doctrine. Any sign they suspect the truth about our capabilities? Captain Santos asked. Negative, Captain. They appear to believe they are facing a standard defense fleet with inferior technology. Captain Santos smiled grimly. She was a veteran of 15 years in the Human Defense Force, but this would be her first battle against an Imperial fleet. Every human officer had trained for this moment, but few had believed it would actually come. Signal the fleet, she commanded. Execute Battle Plan Omega, all ships weapons free. Across the system, 47 human ships began to move with a precision that should have been impossible. They accelerated, turned, and coordinated their movements as if controlled by a single mind. In reality, they were controlled by something even better. Quantum entanglement communications allowed every ship to share information instantly, creating a level of tactical coordination that had never existed in galactic history. Admiral Zexai watched the human formation with growing unease. Something about their movement patterns seemed wrong. They were too precise, too coordinated. No fleet could maneuver that smoothly without long practice or superior communications. "Begin attack," he ordered. All ships open fire at maximum range. 500 Imperial ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Plasma beams and particle cannons lanced across space toward the human fleet. Energy discharges that could vaporize mountains struck the human ships and accomplished almost nothing. "Impossible," breathed the tactical officer. "Direct hits on multiple human vessels. They should be destroyed." On the display, the human ships continued their approach. Scorch marks and glowing metal showed where Imperial weapons had struck, but the thick armor had absorbed damage that would have destroyed any other ships in the galaxy. "Their armor is far more effective than our projections indicated," reported the science officer, a tentacled being whose skin had turned pale with shock. "Estimates suggest armor thickness of over 6 feet on their larger vessels." Admiral Zexai was about to order a second volley when his displays suddenly filled with new contacts. The human ships had opened their weapon ports, what emerged redefined. The concept of overwhelming firepower, each human ship carried hundreds of missile tubes and kinetic gun batteries. When they fired, space itself seemed to ignite. Thousands of missiles streaked toward the Imperial fleet, followed by streams of metal projectiles moving at significant fractions of light speed. The Imperial point defense systems, designed to intercept energy weapons and slower projectiles, were overwhelmed instantly. Missiles struck Imperial ships and detonated with the force of small nuclear weapons. Kinetic projectiles punched through energy shields like they were made of paper and tore massive holes in ship hulls. In the first 30 seconds of actual combat, the Imperial fleet lost 63 ships. Evasive maneuvers. Admiral Zexai roared, "All ships scatter and return fire." But the human ships were not done. As the Imperial fleet tried to break formation, the human vessels demonstrated their second tactical advantage. They could turn and accelerate faster than anything the Empire had ever seen. While Imperial ships were massive and graceful, human ships were built for war. Every system was designed for combat efficiency. Captain Santos watched the Imperial fleet's formation collapse as her ships tore through their ranks. "Time to engagement completion?" she asked. "At current rate, 11 minutes, 30 seconds, Lieutenant Commander Park replied. "Imperial ships are attempting to withdraw to longer range, but our ships are faster." "Any response from their fleet commander?" "They are broadcasting surrender offers, Captain. Admiral Zexai is requesting immediate ceasefire and negotiation." Captain Santos considered this for exactly 3 seconds. "Negative. Continue attack. We are here to send a message, not to take prisoners." The battle continued for 14 minutes total. When it ended, the Imperial fleet of 500 ships had been reduced to 12 heavily damaged survivors. The human fleet had suffered minor damage to 3 vessels. Admiral Zexai sat in his command chair and stared at displays showing the wreckage of his fleet. Around him, bridge crew members worked frantically to keep life support functioning. The Sword of Empire had taken 17 direct hits and was barely capable of faster-than-light travel. "Casualty report," he said quietly. 488 ships destroyed or disabled, his tactical officer reported, his voice hollow with shock. Estimated crew losses approach 6 million beings. And the humans? 3 ships report minor damage. No confirmed human casualties. Admiral Zexai closed his eyes. In 600 years of service, he had never imagined such a defeat was possible. The humans had not just won the battle. They had made the Imperial fleet look like children playing with toys. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he commanded. Captain Santos appeared on his main screen. She was a small woman with dark hair and calm eyes that seemed to see right through him. "Admiral Zexai," she said politely, "I trust you found our Demonstration educational. How? Was all the Admiral could manage to say. How did we defeat you so easily? How did we coordinate our movements so precisely? How did our weapons penetrate your defenses so effortlessly? Captain Santos smiled, but it was not a kind expression. The answer is simple, Admiral. You came here expecting to fight the kind of enemy you have always fought. Divided, poorly coordinated, using technology similar to your own? She leaned forward slightly. Instead, you encountered something new. A species that spent 200 years studying your tactics and designing counters to them. A species that thinks of war as a problem to be solved rather than a contest to be won. A species that builds their ships specifically to kill yours. Admiral SCI-FI's crystal body had gone completely dark. Your weapons, they are unlike anything in our databases. Because we did not copy existing designs, Captain Santos replied. We analyzed Imperial ship construction and armor systems. We determined that energy weapons, while impressive, are less efficient than kinetic projectiles at penetrating your defenses. We built our ships to carry thousands of missiles and railguns specifically because your point defense systems cannot handle that volume of fire and your coordination. Quantum entanglement communications. Every ship in our fleet shares information instantly. We do not have individual ship commanders making separate decisions. We have a single tactical intelligence controlling all vessels simultaneously. The human captain stood up from her chair. Admiral, you will return to your empire and deliver a message. What happened here was not a battle. It was a demonstration. We used 47 ships to destroy 500 of yours. Would you like to know how many ships humanity actually has? Admiral SCI-FI found he was afraid to ask, but had to know. How many? Enough, Captain Santos replied. More than enough. Tell your Emperor that the 72-hour deadline has expired. Tell him that human space is now permanently closed to Imperial forces. Tell him that any Empire ship found in our territory will be destroyed without warning. She paused, studying the defeated alien commander. And tell him that if he chooses to escalate this conflict, the next demonstration will not be limited to a single system. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral SCI-FI alone with the wreckage of his career and the ruins of his fleet. Around him, his surviving crew worked to repair enough systems to make the journey home. In the depths of space, floating among the debris of Imperial ships, automated human recovery drones moved silently through the wreckage. They were not searching for survivors. They were collecting intelligence. Every piece of Imperial technology, every fragment of hull plating, every intact computer core was carefully gathered and transmitted back to human research facilities. The Empire thought they understood human capabilities after this battle. They were wrong. The humans had revealed only what they wanted to reveal. The true scope of human preparation remained hidden. On Luna Station, President Chunwei watched recordings of the battle with her senior staff. The conference room was silent as the final scenes played out on the main screen. Reaction from the Empire? She asked quietly. Admiral SCI-FI surviving. Ships have returned to Imperial space, reported General Martinez. Long-range intelligence indicates massive mobilization of Imperial forces. Emperor Thexville is reportedly furious. He will not accept this defeat, Admiral Okafor observed. The Empire has never lost a fleet engagement in their recorded history. They will respond with overwhelming force. Dr. Nakamura consulted his displays. Intelligence estimates suggest they will deploy their main battle fleets, possibly 50,000 ships or more. President Chunwei nodded slowly. Good. When they come with everything they have, we will show them everything we have been preparing. For 2 centuries, she turned to face her advisors. Signal all human forces. Phase 4 is authorized. It is time to end the Zirithi Empire once and for all. Across human space, hidden weapons came online. Cloaked fleets revealed themselves. Secret installations activated systems that had been built in darkness and silence for generations. The Empire thought they had seen the worst humanity could offer. They were about to learn that the demonstration at Kepler 442 had been humanity holding back. The real war was about to begin. Emperor Thexval had ruled the Zirathi Empire for over 2,000 years. His massive crystalline body towered 15 feet above the floor of his throne room, and veins of pure gold ran through his transparent form. He was ancient, powerful, and had never known defeat. Today that was about to change. Explain to me again how 500 ships were destroyed by 47 primitives, the Emperor said, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. Each word caused the golden veins in his body to pulse with angry light. Admiral SCI-FI knelt before the throne, his own crystal form dim with shame. Around the throne room, hundreds of imperial officials watched in silence. Many had served the Empire for centuries, but none had ever seen their emperor this furious. Your Majesty, the humans possess capabilities our intelligence failed to detect. Their weapons are specifically designed to penetrate our defenses. Their coordination exceeds anything we have encountered. Their ships move as if controlled by a single mind. A single mind? Emperor Thexval leaned forward on his throne. You are telling me that 47 ships defeated 500 because they worked together better? It is more than that, Your Majesty. They seem to share information instantly, across any distance. Every ship knows what every other ship is doing at all times. They attacked with perfect timing and precision. The Emperor rose from his throne and began walking around the kneeling admiral. His footsteps rang like bells on the crystal floor. In 3,000 years, the Empire has integrated 847 species. We have faced hive minds, collective consciousnesses, and machine intelligences. None have proven superior to imperial tactics. The humans are different, Your Majesty. They fight like nothing in our experience. They are mammals. Thexval roared, his voice shaking. The entire throne room. Primitive, short-lived creatures who discovered space travel only centuries ago. They cannot possibly challenge an empire that spans the galaxy. Grand Admiral Kexthal, the highest-ranking military officer in the Empire, stepped forward. His black crystal body was marked with silver scars from 1,000 battles. Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider the possibility that our initial approach was flawed. The humans clearly prepared for this confrontation. Emperor Thexval turned, his golden gaze on his senior commander. Are you suggesting we negotiate with these primitives? I'm suggesting we treat them as a serious threat rather than a minor annoyance, Kexthal replied carefully. Their demonstration at Kepler 442 proves they have capabilities we did not anticipate. Then we will use capabilities they have not anticipated, the Emperor declared. He gestured to a massive holographic display that filled one wall of the throne room. It showed the entire galaxy with Imperial territory marked in purple. Mobilized the 1st through 10th Imperial fleets. 50,000 ships, representatives from every member species. We will show these humans what happens when someone defies the Empire. The assembled officials began making excited sounds. 50,000 ships was the largest force the Empire had ever assembled. It was enough firepower to conquer entire galaxy arms. Your Majesty, Admiral SCI-FI said quietly, the humans claimed they were only demonstrating their capabilities at Kepler 442. They suggested they had much larger forces available. Emperor Thexval's crystalline form blazed with golden light. Let them bring their full strength. We will crush them utterly and use their defeat as an example to any other species that might consider resistance. Meanwhile, in the depths of Luna Station, President Chunwei stood before the largest tactical display in human space. The screen showed the entire galaxy with human assets marked in blue and Empire forces in red. What it revealed would have shocked any Imperial observer. Blue dots were everywhere. Not just in the systems the Empire knew about, but scattered throughout Imperial space itself. Hidden bases, cloaked ships, intelligence stations, and sleeper assets that had been positioned. Over decades of careful planning. Status report on Imperial mobilization, Chunwei commanded. General Martinez consulted his displays. Long-range surveillance confirms massive fleet movements throughout Empire space. Intelligence estimates 50,000 ships being assembled. Multiple species contributing forces. Expected timeline for their attack? 2 weeks for full mobilization. They appear to be planning simultaneous strikes on every known human world. Admiral Okafor studied the tactical data. It is exactly what we predicted they would do. Overwhelming. Force applied to multiple targets to prevent coordination. Dr. Nakamura smiled grimly. They still think in terms of separate worlds that need individual defense. They cannot comprehend a civilization where every world is connected to every other. World in real time. President Chunwei nodded. Initiate Phase 5. All assets, full activation. It is time to show the Empire what a united species can accomplish. Across human space, systems that had remained hidden for decades suddenly came online. On agricultural worlds, seemingly innocent farms revealed themselves as massive weapons platforms. Asteroid mining stations deployed fleets of warships that had been constructed in secret. Space stations that appeared to be commercial facilities activated. Military-grade sensors and communication arrays, most shocking of all. Dozens of Imperial worlds suddenly found human installations on their planets, installations that had been there for years without detection. Human agents who had lived and worked among alien populations for decades revealed their true purpose. The Empire had thought they were dealing with a species confined to a few dozen systems. In reality, humans had quietly infiltrated the Empire itself on the Imperial world of Nexus Prime, a major military supply depot. Administrator Velcane was reviewing cargo manifests when alarms began sounding throughout the facility. The administrator was a tall, thin being with blue skin and multiple eyes that could see in different spectrums. "What is the emergency?" he demanded as his security chief burst into the office. "Administrator, we have discovered humans on the planet, not prisoners or diplomats, military operatives. They have been here for years." Velcane's multiple eyes widened in shock. "Impossible. This world is deep in Imperial space. How could humans infiltrate so far? We do not know, sir. But they have sabotaged our primary weapons depot. 40% of our military supplies have been destroyed." Similar scenes played out across hundreds of Imperial worlds. Humans revealed themselves simultaneously across the Empire, striking at military bases, communication centers, supply depots, and shipyards. In a single coordinated assault, the Empire's infrastructure suffered massive damage. Emperor Thexville received the reports with growing horror. "How many worlds have been compromised?" "Over 300 confirmed human infiltrations, Your Majesty," Grand Admiral Kexthel reported. "They appeared to have been in place for years, possibly decades, and the damage? Extensive." Primary shipyards at Zerathi Industrial Complex 7 are offline. The main communication relay at Central Hub is destroyed. Supply lines to 12 fleet groups have been severed. The Emperor's golden veins pulsed with rage. "Find these human infiltrators and eliminate them." "We are trying, Your Majesty, but they seem to vanish as quickly as they appeared." "Our security forces cannot locate them." What the Empire did not understand was that the human operatives were not trying to hide. They were simply leaving. Across Imperial space, human agents made their way to predetermined extraction points where cloaked ships waited to take them home. The strikes had not been intended to cripple the Empire permanently. They were designed to send a message: nowhere in Imperial space was truly safe from human reach. On Luna Station, President Chinwei watched real-time reports from the operation with satisfaction. "Casualty report on our operatives?" "Minimal losses, Madam President," General Martinez reported. 97% successful extraction. The few agents we lost completed their missions before capture. Imperial response? Panic. Their command structure is struggling to coordinate with so many facilities offline. Fleet mobilization has been delayed by at least a week. Admiral Okafor studied the tactical displays. They are learning that we do not fight the way they expect. Instead of meeting their fleets in open battle, we strike at their ability to wage war. Dr. Nakamura looked up from his quantum communication console. "Madame President, we are receiving reports from human assets throughout the Empire. Imperial member species are questioning their leadership. Many want to know how humans could operate so freely in Imperial space without detection. President Chun Wei considered this information carefully. Open channels to the member species. Not to their governments, but to their people directly. It is time they learned the truth about their empire. Across the galaxy, human agents activated hidden transmission systems. Suddenly, every Imperial world was receiving broadcasts in their native languages. The messages were simple but devastating. People of the Zirathi Empire, the broadcast began. You have been told that humanity threatened your security. This is false. We sought only to be left alone. Your emperor chose to threaten our worlds and demand our surrender. We warned him to withdraw. He refused. The broadcasts continued with footage from the battle at Kepler 442, showing Imperial ships being destroyed by human forces. But more importantly, they showed the aftermath. Human ships rescuing Imperial survivors, providing medical aid, and treating prisoners with respect. We do not wish to conquer you, the messages explained. We do not seek to replace your empire with our own. We want only to show you that there is another way, a way where species cooperate by choice rather than conquest, a way where the strong protect the weak instead of enslaving them. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. For 3,000 years, Imperial citizens had been told their empire was invincible and benevolent. Now they saw their fleets destroyed by a species they had been taught to consider primitive. Worse, they saw that species offering mercy to their defeated enemies. Emperor Thexville tried to block the transmissions, but human technology was too advanced. The broadcasts reached every world, every ship, every citizen of the empire. For the first time in Imperial history, the people began to question their government's decisions. Your Majesty, Grand Admiral Kexel reported, we are receiving requests from member worlds for clarification. Many are asking why we attacked humanity if they pose no threat to Imperial citizens. Tell them it is a matter of Imperial security, Thexville commanded. They are also asking why our fleets were so easily defeated if our military is as superior as we have always claimed. The Emperor's crystal form began to crack under the stress. Golden light leaked from the fractures. Accelerate fleet mobilization. We must crush these humans before their propaganda undermines Imperial unity. Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider opening negotiations. No. The Emperor's roar shattered several crystal decorations in the throne room. The Empire does not negotiate with inferiors. We will demonstrate our power and end this humiliation. But as reports continued to arrive, it became clear that the Empire's power was not what it once had been. Human infiltration had revealed critical weaknesses in Imperial infrastructure. Human coordination had made their own military tactics obsolete. And human propaganda was undermining the very foundation of Imperial authority. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Zirathi Empire was losing a war. Not just battles, but the hearts and minds of their own people. In her command center on Luna Station, President Chun Wei watched the Empire's desperate preparations with calm determination. They will come with everything they have, she told her advisors. It will be their final mistake. Are we ready for full-scale war? Admiral Okafor asked. We have been ready for 200 years, Chun Wei replied. Now we finish what they started. 6 months after the first human ultimatum, Emperor Thexville stood alone in his throne room and watched his empire die. Through the massive crystal windows, he could see fires burning in the capital city below. His people were not celebrating. They were rioting. The golden veins in his crystalline body had dimmed to a pale yellow. Cracks ran through his ancient form like spider webs. For the first time in 2,000 years of rule, he looked fragile. Your Majesty, Grand Admiral Kexthel entered the throne room, his black crystal body moving slowly. He too showed the strain of the past months, the reports you requested. Tell me, Dexwell said quietly. The 10th Imperial Fleet has surrendered to human forces at Rigel Station. Admiral Morthic chose to lay down arms rather than continue fighting. That makes 7 fleets that have surrendered rather than fight. Yes, Your Majesty. The humans offer generous terms to anyone who stops fighting. Full amnesty, medical care for the wounded, and transport home for survivors. Emperor Thexville closed his ancient eyes. And our remaining forces? Scattered. The humans do not occupy territory, but they systematically destroy any military installation that continues to resist. Our shipyards are gone. Our supply lines are cut. Our communication networks are compromised. How many worlds have declared independence? Grand Admiral Kextel hesitated. 437, Your Majesty. More announce their withdrawal from the Empire every day. The Emperor opened his eyes and looked at his oldest friend and most trusted commander. How did we lose, Kextel? How did an empire of 800 worlds fall to a single species that we had never heard of 6 months ago? The Grand Admiral was quiet for a long moment. We forgot that empires are not built on fear alone, Your Majesty. When the fear is gone, people remember what they lost. Outside the throne room, the sounds of the rioting grew louder. The people of Zirathi Prime were not angry at the humans. They were angry at their own government for starting a war that had brought nothing but destruction and humiliation. On the other side of the galaxy, President Chun Wei stood on the observation deck of the battleship Earth's Pride and watched the stars. The ship hung in space near the border of what had once been Imperial territory. Around it, dozens of other human vessels maintained a peaceful but ready presence. Message from Admiral Harrison's fleet, reported Captain Williams, the ship's commanding officer. The Zirathi Fourth Fleet has requested permission to surrender. They offer to disarm completely in exchange for safe passage home. Granted, Chun Wei said without hesitation. Signal Admiral Harrison to accept their surrender and provide any assistance they need. Dr. Nakamura joined the President at the observation window. That makes 12 Imperial fleets that have chosen surrender over destruction. Total Imperial forces remaining in active combat status, less than 10,000 ships. And civilian casualties? Minimal. Our targeted strikes on military installations have been precise. Civilian areas remain untouched. President Chun Wei nodded. This had always been the human strategy. Destroy the Empire's ability to make war, but protect the people who had no choice in their government's decisions. It was a lesson humanity had learned from their own bloody history. Status of the member worlds? Over half have declared independence from the Empire. Most are requesting diplomatic relations with Earth. A few have asked to join the new Galactic Cooperation Council we proposed. Admiral Okafor approached from the communications station. Madam President, we are receiving a priority transmission from Zirathi Prime. Emperor Thexval himself wishes to speak with you. Chun Wei turned from the window. Put it through. The main screen activated, showing the interior of the Imperial throne room. Emperor Thexval sat on his crystal throne, but the magnificent chamber looked different now. Many of the decorations were broken, the lighting was dim. Most telling of all, the Emperor sat alone. No advisors, no guards, no officials. Just an ancient ruler facing the end of everything he had built. President Chun Wei, the Emperor said, his voice barely above. A whisper. I request an audience. I am listening, Your Majesty. I wish to discuss terms for ending this conflict. Chun Wei studied the defeated ruler for a moment. What terms do you propose? Complete withdrawal of all Imperial forces from human space. Recognition of human sovereignty over all territories you claim. Non-interference agreements regarding human colonies and trade routes. Those terms would have been acceptable 6 months ago, Your Majesty. The situation has changed. Emperor Thexval's crystal form seemed to dim further. What do you want? Tribute? Territory? Resources? None of those things, Chun Wei replied. We want the Zirathi Empire to end. The Emperor's golden veins flared. With surprise? End? You wish to conquer the Empire? No, Your Majesty. We wish to liberate it. On the screen, Thexval leaned forward on his throne. I do not understand. President Chun Wei moved closer to the camera so her face filled the screen. For 3,000 years, your empire has existed by forcing other species to serve you. You conquered through fear and maintained control through intimidation, but your empire was never truly stable, was it? It required constant military action to suppress rebellions and maintain order. The Empire brought peace to the galaxy, Dexvo protested weakly. The Empire brought submission to the galaxy, Chunwei corrected. Peace and submission are not the same thing. True peace comes when people choose to work together, not when they are forced to obey. She gestured to something off-screen, and the display changed to show a star map. But this map was different from the Imperial charts. Instead of showing conquered territory, it showed something new. Hundreds of worlds connected by trade routes and communication lines, but each marked with different colors representing different governments. This is what we propose to replace your empire, Chun Wei explained. The Galactic Cooperation Council. Independent worlds and species working together by choice. No emperors, no forced tribute. No conquered populations. Impossible, Dexvo whispered. Without central authority, there would be chaos. Wars between species. Competition for resources. There will be conflicts, Chunwei admitted. But they will be resolved through negotiation and compromise, not conquest and subjugation. Humanity will guarantee the security of any world that chooses to join the Council. We will help them defend themselves, not control them. The Emperor was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of 2,000 years. And what of the Xerathi? What of my people? Your people will be free to choose their own government, Chunwei replied. If they wish to remain united under your rule, that is their choice. If they prefer democracy or some other system, that is also their choice. The only requirement is that they may not use force to control other worlds. You would allow me to remain as ruler? President Chunwei's expression softened slightly. Your Majesty, you are an ancient being who has seen the rise and fall of civilizations. Your experience could be valuable to the new galactic community, but only if you choose to serve rather than rule. On Xerathi Prime, Emperor Dexvo rose slowly from his throne. Through the windows of his palace, he could see his capital city. The riots had stopped, replaced by something he had never seen before. His people were gathering in the streets, but not in anger. They were talking, discussing, debating what kind of government they wanted now that the empire was ending. If I agree to these terms, he said quietly, what guarantee do I have that humanity will not simply become the new empire? You have our word, Chunwei replied. But more than that, you have our actions. In 6 months of war, we never conquered a single world. We never demanded tribute or submission. We offered mercy to every enemy who stopped fighting and aid to every civilian who needed help. And if I refuse, then your empire will continue to collapse as more worlds choose independence. Your fleets will continue to surrender rather than fight a hopeless war. Your people will continue to demand change. The only difference will be that the transition will take longer and cause more suffering. Emperor Dexvo walked to the great window and looked out at his people. For 3,000 years he had ruled through fear and strength. Now he faced a choice he had never imagined: surrender power voluntarily or watch it slip away piece by piece. I have one condition, he said finally. What condition? I wish to meet with you in person, on neutral ground. I want to look into the eyes of the leader who ended my empire and ask her a question. President Chunwei considered this. What question? Why did you choose mercy over conquest? You could have destroyed us completely. You had the power. Why did you show restraint? 3 days later, President Chunwei arrived at Nexus Station, a massive space facility that had once been an imperial military base. Now it served as neutral territory for the peace negotiations. The station had been cleaned of all weapons and was monitored by ships from a dozen different species. Emperor Dexvo waited in the central meeting chamber. Up close, he was even more impressive than Chunwei had expected. His crystal body towered above her, and despite his recent defeats, he still carried himself with ancient dignity. Thank you for coming, President Chunwei, he said formally. Thank you for agreeing to these negotiations, Your Majesty. They sat across from each other at a simple table. No advisors, no guards, no recording devices. Just two leaders who would decide the fate of countless worlds. You wanted to ask me a question, Chunwei said. Vexville studied her with ancient eyes. Why mercy? Your species is clearly capable of tremendous destruction. You could have burned every imperial world and enslaved every imperial citizen. Instead, you chose to limit your targets and offer amnesty to your enemies. Why? President Chen Wei was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Because we learned something from our own history, Your Majesty. On Earth we had many empires. Some were built through conquest, others through cooperation. The empires built on conquest always fell eventually, usually leaving destruction in their wake. But the alliances built on mutual benefit lasted much longer and created more prosperity for everyone involved. But surely the temptation to rule must be strong when you have such power. It is, Chunwei admitted. But we learned another lesson from our history. Power corrupts. Even the most well-intentioned rulers eventually become tyrants if they hold absolute authority for too long. The only way to prevent that is to spread power among many people and many worlds. Emperor. Vexville leaned back in his chair. You speak of lessons from your history. How long did it take your species to learn these lessons? Thousands of years? Countless wars? Billions of deaths? We made every mistake it is possible to make, some of them many times over. And now you wish to spare other species from making the same mistakes? We wish to give them the choice, Chunwei corrected. Some will still choose war and conquest. Some will make mistakes we could have helped them avoid. But at least they will choose for themselves. The emperor was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, older somehow, but also relieved. President Chunwei, on behalf of the Zirithi Empire, I formally surrender all imperial claims to territory outside the Zirithi home system. I renounce all imperial authority over member species and colony worlds. I agree to the immediate establishment of the Galactic Cooperation Council with humanity as its founding member and protector. Chunwei stood and extended her hand. And on behalf of humanity, I accept your surrender and welcome the Zirithi, people as free and equal members of the galactic community. The two leaders shook hands, ending 3,000 years of imperial rule with a simple gesture. 5 years later, President Chunwei stood in the Assembly Hall of the Galactic Cooperation Council on New Geneva Station. Before her sat representatives from over 600 worlds. Former imperial species sat beside former enemies. Ancient rivals worked together on trade agreements and scientific exchanges. At a place of honor near the front sat former Emperor Vexville, now serving as the Zirithi representative and advisor on historical matters. His crystal body had regained much of its former luster, and his golden veins pulsed with something that looked like contentment. The council recognizes the representative from Vault 359, Chunwei announced. A young human woman stood up. Madame. President, the mining consortium from Vault 359 formally requests mediation assistance in our dispute with the Centauri Trade Federation regarding asteroid mining rights in the neutral zone. Motion granted. The Council will assign a mediation team consisting of representatives from 3 neutral worlds. Next item of business? As the session continued, Chunwei reflected on how much had changed. There were still conflicts, disagreements, still problems to solve. But they were being solved through talking instead of fighting, through cooperation instead of conquest. The galaxy had not become perfect, but it had become free. And for humanity, that had always been the goal.